everyone, and welcome to the Jam Yearbook. I'm Jim.
And I'm Matt. For today's show, we put together a playlist of our lives. And yes, we know what you're thinking. Didn't you asshats just spend the last year or so doing that?
Yeah, I think we did. But this one, trust me, is much shorter. It's more a Cliff Notes version of our lives, our own K-Tel record, if you would. We picked 10 songs spanning the decades of our lifetime, plus a wild card from before we were born.
We picked some songs that have a personal connection, maybe tell our own story, and mostly separate from our original Jam Yearbook playlist.
I think this is kind of our own Forrest Gump or any movie where you see the music following the main character through the course of their lifetime.
Yeah, and I think picking songs was easy in the 70s and 80s, but it was tricky once we arrived in the 2000s.
Yeah, that's because life speeds up. There seems to be less of an emotional impact with music. The connection's not the same. It's noticeable looking back that sometimes music made us feel different. I think we get more stoic when we get older and we're conditioned to connect less emotionally to things.
Yeah, and we become cynical and we don't trust those feelings anymore. It's not like being empty of emotion, but the experience has changed. And once you reach, we've talked about this many times, once you reach a certain age, you've heard it all, you've seen it all, or at least you think you have. And a lot of us, we search a lot less for music to connect to and hang on to it. So having those memories to associate music with, it gets trickier.
Yeah, it does. I think that's what's been the most fun about putting this show together, though. I think when we started the Jam Yearbook, our focus was on finding, quote, the best music, unquote. And for this episode, personally, I don't think I was, and I've seen your songs. I don't think you were focused on that as much as the music that was surrounding us.
Oh, no, definitely. There are a couple songs that would not end up on any playlist that I would make, most likely. These songs would play out like scenes in our lives if they were a movie. And nobody's going to win an Oscar here, but we just thought it'd be fun to create our own soundtracks. So, okay,
Yes.
Jim, this is your life. Tell us where you're going to start.
Well, I think we should go decade by decade. So this is probably going to play out like a Quentin Tarantino movie. As we roll through the decades of music, it may actually associate to a different time in our life. So I'm going to start with David Bowie's Ziggy Stardust. This won't be a surprise to anybody who knew me in my early 20s. I spent a few years obsessed with Bowie and the Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars album in particular. It was a stock cover song for Cinderblock Baby. We played it at a gig once, and a guy from another band who I really looked up to this guy. We didn't interact often. He made a point of coming up to me and telling me that we did a great cover of it, that he'd always wanted to do it himself, but he didn't dare try because he didn't want to screw it up. To be honest, his band probably would have done it better than we would have. They could have done a better cover, but it felt great to hear that from him, and it really boosted my confidence. So I'm going to start soundtrack to my life going with a Bowie tune.
I knew you would. I know you love David Bowie and especially Ziggy Stardust. So that's a good spot to start. I am going to start with Kiss and Shout It Out Loud.
Big surprise, Kiss.
Big surprise there. You know, the 70s and 80s, they were pretty stressful to choose songs from. It was actually pretty easy when I remembered Kiss, though. But put away all the snarkiness about what they may have become over the years, selling this, selling that, brand, Kiss, buy this, buy a coffin, get buried in a Kiss coffin, whatever. People probably think they're a bit silly again because they just won't stop touring. And why? Why not? Why should they? They're out there, they're entertaining people and letting people have a good time. I think I've told the story before with Kiss where I borrowed my uncle's 8-track tape of Destroyer. I could make a whole song without having to take the tape out again to look at the sticker of the album cover. Yet another failure of damn 8 tracks. Kiss completely captured my imagination. Put yourself in the shoes of a 5 to 8-year-old kid in the mid 70s when Destroyer came out. The makeup, costumes, characters, that whole aura. I was already reading Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, whatever comic books. Kiss were like real life superheroes.
Yeah, they were.
Star Wars and the Lord of the Rings animated movies were just around the corner. All of this was a great thing to nurture the mind bent towards fantastical things.
Yeah. Kiss definitely sold themselves well and they knew that market and they cornered it. And you're absolutely right. If there were a Star Wars of music in the 70s, it
It was
was this
Kiss.
band. Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm going to jump out of the 70s. So I hope that's okay with you, because I think there are a lot of songs there that I could wax nostalgic with during this show, but they wouldn't necessarily be from the soundtrack to my life. So I need to move to the 80s because this is a more impactful period. And I am going to go to Dire Straits and the song Brother in Arms. I'm picking an 80s song, though, for a 90s experience. This is why I say it's like a Quentin Tarantino movie, because it was the year 1991 to 1992 that I went to Roger Williams College in Bristol, Rhode Island. I wasn't destined to stay there. I was only there 1 year, but I made lifelong friends in those short 9 months of my life. During the spring semester in 92, I was just chilling out in my dorm room, and a friend came by with a ticket for me to go see Dire Straits. Just popped in. Hey, Jim, what are you doing tonight? I'm doing nothing. No, you're not. You're going to come see Dire Straits. And literally pulled the ticket out and showed it to me. Cool. He had 4 tickets, and there were 4 of us who were all best friends, and we were inseparable during this time. So we went to the show, and we were up in, I wouldn't say the nosebleeds, but we were up in the, upper areas of an arena, and we saw them play Sultans of Swing, Tunnel of Love, Romeo and Juliet. They came out. The encore was Money for Nothing. They started playing that. And even though we were in the cheap seats, we saw, oh, look, down that way, we can get onto the floor. Let's go get onto the floor. So we thought we'd, go down onto the floor and, be with everybody else who was down there having a good time. It wasn't like it was a Fish or a Grateful Dead concert with a bunch of people dancing around. It was Dire Straits, but it was still cool. But
Bunch of 40-year-olds out in the audience.
yeah, that's what it was. But we were a bunch of 20-year-old guys, and we made our way as close as we could to the front, all hanging on to each other. And then I remember all of us just kind of walking together, holding our hands up in the air above our heads. And I've played with a lot of bands and formed some close friendships in my life, but with these guys that night, it was that same kind of unity. We were all experiencing that moment of seeing Dire Straits together. I mean, what a classic band. And to go and see that and experience it together was great. If you've ever seen them live, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It was a true life moment. And if you haven't seen them, I feel sorry, because it was just something you couldn't capture without being there.
No, and that's a great sentiment that can connect to many times in your life, because as you said, being in many bands and whatever, there is a brother type of unity that you achieve when you hang out with people so much. And so a song like that and an experience like that can speak to many different points in your life. Well, I'm going to also go to the 80s, a little
Okay.
bit more teenage, Matt, and I'm going to bring in some Ozzy Osbourne and Bark at the Moon.
Nice.
Many, many songs could have been put in here for the 80s. Obviously, for our generation, the 80s are the decade of music. Not only are we growing into our teenage years, but this is probably where we're finding more music from the past that is impactful as well. 60s and 70s, where when you revisit them, they have an impact instead of just being something that's on the radio that you sing along with.
Yeah.
Ozzy may not have been the first melody I listened to. Those titles, it probably goes to like Def Leppard, Quiet Riot. But I remember watching Good Rockin' Tonight after Hockey Night in Canada ended. And the VJ, Terry Mulligan, he played the videos for So Tired and Bark at the Moon. I went and bought the cassette the very next day.
Nice.
Ozzy was the first one, not just in metal, I think music in general, that compelled me to seek out a back catalog and the history and just embrace it, soak myself in it, and learn it. In a hurry, I got all his earlier solo records, and I realized how big of an idiot I was, because of course I knew who Ozzy Osbourne was. There's Black Sabbath, for Christ's sakes. There's so many familiar songs, but it never really hit me until the live album, Speak of the Devil, where I'm like, wait a sec, this is all Black Sabbath songs. Yeah, dumbass, it's Ozzy freaking Osbourne. So many familiar songs, but I was finally connected in a way that I was passionate about it.
Yeah, great song. And the funny thing is, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking about the 80s. We couldn't ever decide on a Huey Lewis and the News song between the two of us. So you
No,
don't wait for one, people. You know,
nope.
when it comes to that, we would just probably pick an album and throw it on here for the 80s.
And a lot of people that have listened to the old episodes of the Jam Yearbook, you know how much we've gone on and on about Huey Lewis and sports and earlier Huey Lewis, and how I've gone on and on about the Ramones and Prince. And no, none of that's here because I can't pick just one. Well, I probably could, but do you really want to hear me just wax nostalgic about the same songs again and again and again?
Yeah.
No, Purple Rain is awesome. It's one of my favorite songs of all time. It's just not going to be here today.
And I think this is a good way to do this because I think we could probably pick 10 per decade. We could pick
Ugh,
10.
yeah.
We did 10 per year. It'd be easy to do that. So this is a nice way to dip into the old show with our toes
Yeah.
a little bit, but not
Yeah.
drag you through everything we've already talked about. Because one of the things we really wanted to do was make this more, you know, when you're watching us, this is the background music to our life of what was going on. It wasn't always in the foreground of what we were doing.
No, and sometimes it's in a broader aspect too. I mean, Ozzy Osbourne, that could very well just relate to all the metal that I was listening to.
Yeah.
But really, I chose Ozzy and especially Bark at the Moon because that was my gateway. That Dogleg Left in a different direction musically for me entirely.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to dogleg right and go to Peter Gabriel in the song In Your Eyes. I think I did pick this for the Jam Yearbook, so I apologize for bringing a repeat back, but I have to because if you knew me during this time, there were a lot of great soundtracks in the 80s, and I owned most of them. You had a lot of them, Matt. In Your Eyes by Peter Gabriel wasn't actually written for a movie. It was on his album that came out in 1986, but then Cameron Crowe curated it for his soundtrack for the movie Say Anything, which came out in 1989. Don't worry, people. I never held a boombox above my head outside a girl's bedroom window. Might have thought about it. And I definitely didn't kickbox because that would have been dumb if I thought of that. If you'd ever seen me, you would know.
Yeah.
But I knew why this song was so special to him, that character of Lloyd Dobler within the film. And there was a lot of sentiment that I shared with him. And also, come on, Matt, I was the hopeless romantic when I was 17, 18, 19 years old, as Lloyd Dobler was. And it just fit me so well. And the song itself is timeless. Whenever I hear it, it just takes me right back to that 17-year-old Jim.
And I was so surprised you never had a duster like he wore. Didn't he have that long coat?
Oh, I should just still get one today. I should.
That sounds like a Halloween costume for you if I ever heard one, Jim.
I like this idea.
Lloyd Dobler. We're working on it. It doesn't have to be a boombox. It could be your phone. Just get a picture of a boombox. Pull that above your head playing. So you don't have to carry around an 8 size D battery laden big old boombox from the 80s.
But if anybody has one I can borrow, I'd love to do that. You wait. In all the nostalgia that's come around these years from vinyl to cassettes, we're going to see boomboxes again at some point.
Oh,
Mark my words.
God.
I bet you right here, I'm going to say it right now on the show. Within the next 5 to 10 years, there are going to be a bunch of kids that are 14 years old walking around with boomboxes on their shoulder.
This is perfect. We got to do this because instead of a cassette, you have a door that opens, you can slip your phone into, you close it, and it just plugs into your phone.
Copyright Matt Greger. Copyright. Jam Yearbook.
We're there. We got it. We're millionaires finally, Jim. Yes, we can stop all this nonsense. Go buy that island and live in peace.
Okay. We're down. We're down. All right. What's your next song?
Here we go. Okay, Jim, I am going to keep us in the 80s and go back to metal. And a little reluctantly, I'm going to say this word, Poison. And the song is Talk Dirty to Me. Stop laughing. Stop laughing, man. Yes, I am picking a Poison song to be part of my life soundtrack.
This is awesome.
Yeah, it wasn't long after Ozzy that I started playing bass and playing in bands that usually involved the same people because, you know, you'd get together, you just fall apart, you get back together. in high school band in the 80s, you were playing a lot of hair metal, and we just happened to play a shit load of Poison songs. Most of my free time as a teenager revolved around band practice or locking myself in my room and learning songs, playing them over and over, memorizing lyrics, making sure I learned every last note. I must have driven everyone in the house crazy. Sorry, mom and dad. I know I was a pain in the ass because it was not subtle practice at all. I do not hold a flame for Poison because I burned out on them a long time ago. But I wouldn't be lying if I said many of the times of my life revolved around this band because of the people I spent time with. And there's a lot of good memories.
Are you sure I never saw you in spandex?
Pretty sure.
Okay.
Pretty sure.
Okay.
Never. And that is not me trying to forcefully, willfully forget something.
Yeah, and if you haven't listened to previous episodes, people, I've actually asked Matt this question after watching him play with these bands in high school. But I do understand that you just were the guy in jeans and a t-shirt.
Wait a second, Jim. You're right. I did wear spandex. On a
Okay.
technicality.
Yes.
I had these ripped up jeans, and there were a couple holes that were really big and not in a complimentary spot. So I had a pair of bike shorts that I wore underneath them.
Anyway, moving right along.
Anywho, moving along.
I will steer us again away from your 80s metal. And quite honestly, this is about as far as we've ever turned a corner on this show. The next artist that I'm going to bring up is somebody that if you know, you know, if you don't, go find out. That's all I can say. It's George Winston, Variations on the Canon by Johann Pachelbel. This probably seems like an early wild card. We talked about wild cards coming in our lifetime, but this was recorded in 1982. I spent a lot of time in my late teens, early 20s listening to pianists. This isn't something I've told a lot of people. I think that if I could have spent the time and had the opportunity to play, it would have been my first instrument of choice.
Hands down,
yeah,
easily.
yeah, I really love piano. And I was also a big fan of Glenn Gould. So look back at him. He was more late 60s, I think, but an amazing pianist. George Winston is probably best known for an album where he played the Peanuts theme. I'm not quite sure, though. I think December is his most well-known album. Most people would probably know his version of Pachelbel's Canon that I'm bringing here to the show. It's a really popular choice for weddings. When I was 17, I was exposed to George Winston and his album December, and it became my quiet place, my solace. I would just go and put on my headphones, and it could transport me to anywhere I wanted to with my eyes closed. I even went to see him play live. I saw him play at the Flynn Theater in Burlington, Vermont. And I'm as proud to say that I've seen him play this song as I would be to say I saw Dire Straits play Romeo and Juliet or Neil Young play Needle in the Damage Done. Seeing George Winston was just as incredible to me. I'll always be thankful for how his music calmed me during some of the more anxious moments when I was a young guy. If you need the world to stop spinning, a constructive timeout, put this on, close your eyes, and take it where your mind needs to go.
And for those of us who do not know this by name, listen to it and you will go, oh, yeah. And I really like this.
Yeah, I sent you the YouTube video of him playing it, and you're like, yeah, I know this.
Oh, yeah. It took me a couple of minutes. I'm like, wait a second. Oh, yeah. Because of kind of what you're saying right there with letting your mind quiet down. Sometimes it takes a while to just quiet those thoughts and take in your surroundings and let other things affect you other than what you're trying to think about.
And if you're in the kitchen cooking dinner on Thanksgiving Day, put this album on. It's a great start to the Christmas season. The very first song on it is called Thanksgiving. It's a piece, Thanksgiving. It's a classical piece. It's beautiful, fantastic. And everything that stresses you out through your day will go away for the next 45 minutes. I promise. I promise it.
Wow. So it's October, and between the last episode and today, we've mentioned Christmas twice.
Move us along.
I will, but we're going to stay in the 80s, and I'm going to go with Glass Tigers. Don't forget me when I'm gone. I'm sure you're just like me, spent a lot of time in Canada in the 80s. Rock Island, Magog, Sherbrooke, and of course, Montreal. I knew too many bars in Canada. That I think I knew more bars in Canada than I know in Burlington right now. There's there's no huge emotional attachment to the lyrics or anything, but that doesn't mean I don't like it. I love it. It's a catchy pop rock ditty. I'm sure everybody listening knows this song. If not, put it on because it's one of those songs that you immediately rewind it after you hear it for the first time and go, oh yeah, that's a great song. I got to hear it again. It's on my soundtrack for being completely Canadian and totally 80s.
Yeah, we talked about this song on our Canada show. So I'm glad you brought it back. It's worthy of being talked about because we joked about when Bryan Adams shows up, everybody listens to what's going
Yeah.
on. And I remember sitting down and watching the music videos that would come across the border to us growing up and waiting for this song to come on. It's a fantastic song. Glass Tiger, they are definitely one of those bands that I wish we'd kind of gotten a little more of because they were great. They were really incredible in their time.
They had a niche and they fit it perfectly. And Glass Tiger is just a culmination of everything Canadian that was in my life.
Yeah. All right, Matt, can I take us out of Canada?
Take us out of Canada and out of the 80s.
I will do that. Yeah, I'm going to take us to the 90s. I'm going to take us to, no surprise to anybody who knew me in the early 90s, the Smashing Pumpkins. And what he's only saying that because of the amount of car rides he had to spend with me going, Matt, the Smashing Pumpkins, Smashing Pumpkins, Smashing Pumpkins
are the best goddamn band ever.
But the song is great. It's called Today. Everybody knows this song. The first,
yes, it is
4 or 5 notes, that lick at the beginning, you'll know it. But this is all Camp Jim here. So here I am in the early 90s. It's Camp Jim. If you know me, you know this is a big part of my life. This has to be part of my movie. It is the single song that can transport me back to a beautiful August morning full of hugs and hope. In the summer of 1993, I was working at a camp in Vermont. Even though this song has a deeper, sad message, the first line drew to me, and I blasted this song across camp every morning while people were waking up. Today is the greatest day I've ever known. Every day at camp was like that, each with its own memory. There was laughter, love, a sense of accomplishment for the job that we were doing with the kids. And I look back on it now, I'll always love that music video. And Billy Corgan, he has the full head of hair, driving the ice cream truck around in the video. Yeah, that early 90s, Jim, it was a Smashing Pumpkins song. And this is the one.
Yes, it was. And I always envisioned creepy ice cream truck music coming out of that thing as he was.
It probably was.
Yeah. But I know how much you love the Smashing Pumpkins. He really did love Siamese Dream, the whole entire album.
Yeah.
I bet he could go on for the whole show about that album.
Do you want to do a Siamese Dream podcast?
Let's do it. Let's do it all year long. All year long.
People out there are like, no. We heard Jim talk about this back in 1993.
Okay, I'm going to keep us in the 90s, but I'm going to bring in Supergrass. The song is All Right. The Freedom 90s for Matt.
Yeah.
The 90s was such a fun decade. Out on my own, plenty of friends to hang out with. Even after Kim and I moved in together, we got jobs. We, quote unquote, settled down. There were adventures out with friends, and I did not have a shortage of hobbies. Friends to hike with, just me and the dog. Hey, let's go up Camel Sump and come back and make dinner and drink beer. But there was plenty of golfing, friends to go scuba diving with, and still going to Montreal, even then, for expos or Canadiens games, bar hopping at night, trivia night. All Right sums that spirit up.
Nice.
We are young. We run green, keep our teeth nice and clean, see our friends, see the sights. Feel all right.
Yeah, that's a great song. And I definitely remember the music video for that. It's a fun song. Supergrass, great band. I'm going to pick a song from the 90s, and it's 311 There's no surprise there. If
No
you listen to
surprise there.
Jim,
Yeah. The 90s were the 90s were a special decade of music for
Yeah,
Jim. He
yes,
really did find a lot of music to connect with on an emotional level.
I did. This song is all mixed up. The mid 90s were a mixed up time for me. My parents divorced. I was unable to be stable in a good relationship. And I had a band that I loved playing with that broke up. I dropped out of college and there weren't many bright paths ahead of me. I'd been offered to spend the summer of 1997 as a drama teacher at a 4-H camp in
Oh,
Massachusetts. Yeah. So back to camp. I was a little uncertain. I was 24 and I'd stopped working at summer camps in 1993. And then this song came on the radio one day while I was driving and I was singing along. And it was like the song was telling me what to do. You've got to trust your instinct and let go of regret. You've got to bet on yourself now, Star, because that's your best bet. All mixed up. You don't know what to do. Next thing you turn around and find the person is you. Thought a freak might be the thing. The first could be the last. So just get up off your ass. And that was my motivation. I needed to get up off my ass and leave a town I had very few connections with. I only wound up there because of my parents' divorce, and I could start over again anywhere. I just needed to trust my instincts, let go of the regrets. Once I made that decision to go, I never looked back.
and I'm certain that you could have made the soundtrack of your life with just 311 songs.
And Smashing Pumpkins, probably.
And Smashing Pumpkins side A and side double A, because once again, there are no B-sides, right?
That's true. And I'm sure maybe the Pumpkins covered a Bowie song at one point or another. I could have thrown in there.
Yeah. And I love your love of 311 because there's so much positivity with that band.
Mm-hmm.
And while the music doesn't connect with me, when I read the lyrics and I listen to the songs, I do note that there is just an overwhelming sense of positivity and motivation. I got nothing but respect for that. Good
That's
choice.
cool. So I'm going to take us into the 2000s and go first. Can I lead?
Wait, hold on. No, wait. We've gone through the 70s, which, okay, the 70s, I don't expect it. But we've gone through the 80s and the 90s, and there's no Jim Jam. There's absolutely no rap hip hop from you, parachute pant wearing Jim.
Yeah.
I am surprised.
I respect that you're asking that because you gave us plenty of hair metal Matt from the 80s. And I appreciate that. I really do. My problem is that I would need a mashup song of MC Hammer, Vanilla Ice, Bobby Brown, all of that kind of mixed together. And if you could give me
Stars on 90s rap.
Exactly. If you could give me that song, honestly, Matt, if you can go out and find a mix of Bobby Brown, New Edition, MC Hammer, Vanilla Ice, CC and the Music Factory, any of that stuff, and it all blends right, I'll put a video of me up on TikTok dancing to it, and I'll show you.
Please, someone make that. I want to see that. I have to see that now.
that Jim existed. And I'm not trying to ignore that Jim. And I'm sorry that didn't come out during that time period because yeah, it was a part of me. It was really a big part of who I was.
But it was hard choosing one.
It was hard choosing one, and it didn't probably shape who I was emotionally during that time. And come on, really, when you think about Bobby Brown and those songs and all the bump and grind stuff that was going on, do you want to go back to those feelings of I was just trying to grind up to a girl on the dance floor during this day and age?
Is there much difference between that and hair metal, where it's all just about drinking and having a good time and the hot girl, sitting at the edge of the bar that I kind of want to hang out with? There's not much difference.
I would think there'd be a slight difference because I was trying to always lambada with somebody.
Wait, so we're talking rap, not lambada.
Yeah, but that's the same dance that was going on. You know that. There's nothing more embarrassing than to bring those songs up and have them associate with pubescent horny Jim out there dancing, trying to have a good time. So that's why it didn't
Yeah,
show
but you
up.
know, yeah, but they existed.
They did exist, and that's fine. That's fine. Honestly, if there's one song that I would have brought to the show, that would have been a part of that sound. Can I have a shout out song here? Is that
Honorable
permissible?
mention, dude. That's what this
Okay.
show's been all about,
Yes.
right?
Honorable mention, and I'm gonna go with Night and Day by Albie Shore. That is the song that I'm gonna put into the show right here and now and say that is my R&B Jim Jam song of that time period. If you're gonna make a movie of my life. All right, Matt. I know I finished up the 90s.
No.
What?
It's football season. I'm throwing a challenge flag.
Okay,
You
what do you
can't
got?
see it. It's on my floor, but it is bright red. You got an honorable mention. It's only fair that I get an honorable mention. Can't leave the 90s of my history without including Tom's Diner by Suzanne Vega,
Oh,
the
yeah.
DNA remix version. You know that, but it's more of kind of like that Quentin Tarantino callback to the 80s, because I spent a lot of time working in a diner, and I got to have this because it represents a big chunk of my life working in a diner.
Yeah, I respect that.
It's an experience I'll never regret having.
That's a great call. Good song. Good stuff. Yeah.
All right,
So
now you can move along to the 2000s now that I feel like I have gone tit for tat and had my honorable mention to deal with yours.
okay. So
Yes, I'm being petty. I'm being petty.
I will lead us off then, asshole, with John Mayer. So
What?
so this is one of those moments where I expect some collective moaning. And I know. Here we
Yeah,
go.
these
with
aren't the best songs.
John Mayer again. Look, I'm not going to be ashamed when I say the John Mayer trio is amazing. First of all, John Mayer really cuts loose for the first time playing electric guitar on this album and proves why he's worthy of covering Hendrix. Go check that out. Like, you can't argue with me about that.
No, you can't.
It's almost Stevie Ray Vaughan quality. Steve Jordan plays drums. He's played with everyone from Bootsy Collins to the Blues Brothers, from Bob Dylan to Beyonce. But the real start of this album, and especially this song, is Pino Palladino. Pino inspired me to become a better bass player in my 30s. I sat down in front of this video concert with a lot of side eye. We've talked about side eye in the past, and I didn't want to like it. But, the music guy inside of me was just in awe. And it left me with a lifetime catch-22 feeling about John Mayer, because damned if I don't when it comes to this song and this album. And I gave some examples of who Steve Jordan played with. Well, when John Entwistle from The Who died, Pino Palladino filled in for him on the next tour. If you know bass, that's all I need to say.
And as much as we want to chide John Mayer, we've always tipped the cap, go, dude, you're a master at the guitar.
But this trio album is something else.
It's different. It's not Your Body is a Wonderland, John Mayer.
No, it's not anything sense either, though. This is a one-off in the 2000s.
This is listen to John Mayer shred.
Yeah, that's what it is.
All right, I will keep us going in the early 2000s, but this is a little bit different than John Mayer. I'm going to bring in Art Brut with Bad Weekend. These are the lost 2000s for me. It's my indie phase, as Jim likes to call it, because music was failing me. I take no blame for not growing in the same direction. Jim, you pointed out that I was probably searching for some quieter sounds to chill out during these hectic times, being a new father. And there is a lot of truth there, but I was genuinely not connecting with much of anything that was popular. And a little bit of a mini rant here. I thought there was a bunch of crap music out there. just hands down. It was a bunch of shit.
That's all you're gonna say?
It-
That's your mini
yeah,
rant?
exactly. I said mini rant. I said mini rant. Don't get me going. You got to put more quarters in my back to get me going. Not backside, my back.
up that spandex part in your back.
It may look like a coin slot, but that's not what it's for. Damn it. But anyway, there's a line that gets repeated many times in Bad Weekend. They didn't put much time into writing a lot of words for the song. It's very repetitious, but one line stuck with me. It's akin to banging your head against the wall, and it's a little more than a little sobering when you realize you're in your 30s. And he sings, "Popular culture no longer applies to me." Repeat and bang your head. Repeat and bang your head, because
Mhm.
that's where it is when you're in the 30s. You don't realize it, that it's been happening all your 20s, that popular culture is for the most part moving away from you.
Okay, then I'm going to take us out of that decade and I'm going to take us into the 2010s.
Please
And
do, Jim.
I'm going to bring us to the Tedeschi Trucks Band. The song is Midnight in Harlem. This isn't about the lyrics, though, or the title of the song, as much as it is about the mood of the music. I love the slow intro to the song. Derek Trucks is so tasteful with the notes he chooses to lead in with this song. And Susan Tedeschi sounds as beautiful as always. He does not use any pedals for his guitar. He plugs into his amp, he chooses his tone for the show, and he plays with it through the entire show. But this song is more about a mood. I was on a train traveling through a beautiful part of Scotland, and it was like this song took me over the landscape, like it just traveled with me. The textures of the song painted the colors across the mountains, and I looked out the window and I thought to myself, this is now. This is my moment in life. If I was going to put a song on a soundtrack of my life, I might not always include the lyrics, but I might want to choose the music to represent how I felt when I was experiencing something. And this is what this song did to me. I've been lucky enough to stare out the window of a train in awe of how beautiful Scotland is multiple times.
And what you just said sums up my biggest challenge in doing this episode, because sometimes I've talked about this quite a few times actually. Lyrics don't always come to me. Sometimes it's about a melody, it's about a sound.
Yeah.
And what you just described is, I could have chose a dozen songs from any decade because the sound or the melody just conveys a memory to me. And Derek Trucks, he is proof positive. I don't know how many times I've read like posts about, oh, how do I get this sound in my guitar? How do I get this sound in my guitar? Sometimes, man, it's just about your fingers.
Yeah, that's
and
it.
how you play the
You
instrument.
just plug in and go.
Oh yeah, if you got the right instrument, man, it depends on how much you dig in with your fingers or your pick that makes those pickups make a sound that you want.
Yeah.
A lot of it is about the person.
Oh, yeah. Tedeschi Trucks, great band, great music. I'm happy to bring this to the show. It really represents how I felt during that time. 2010s, how were you feeling, Matt?
I was feeling a little apprehensive when I was trying to think of a song.
Yeah.
It's very hard in this decade because, well, just go back to listen to old episodes of the Jam Yearbook. We had some not so good things to say about the 2010s. But I'm going to go with a band that will come out of left field for the 2010s with ELO, Electric Light Orchestra, When I Was a Boy. This is the part of my movie, folks, where I'm a few years into being a dad, and I'm flashing back to when I was a boy and how big of a role music played in my life. Yet I'd kind of fallen out of touch and drifted away from playing, especially playing. And I was lost when it came to finding something good to listen to. Nothing new that was coming on the radio was really connecting with me. I really relate when Jeff Lynne sings about the radio waves keeping him company. Before I got into buying records and later cassettes, I was never too far from a radio. I had a blank cassette in the deck ready to record my favorite songs. The early 2010s, I started picking up the guitar again and I've been playing steadily ever since. Yeah, I'll always go back to it. I love it. As I'm sure Jim also has that similar connection to. When I Was a Boy also stings a little bit as it's about daydreaming of becoming a professional musician. That was always an aspiration, but I never really had the drive to get there. But it also makes me wonder what my boys' secret dreams were when they were growing up.
Matt, honestly, I'm so jealous you picked this song.
I was surprised at that.
Yeah, I listened to this album when it came out. It's a good album, and this song is a standout on it. So, yeah, happy to have that there. But I'm going to take us out of the 2010s because there's not much there, as you said. We're in the
No.
2020s, and I am going to pick the song Wolf Alice, The Last Man on the Earth.
Woohoo! I'm so happy you chose Wolf Alice.
Yeah, good band. It fit right into the time that we were all living through during the pandemic. It was a time of mystery with all the illness and everything that was going on, the fear that had encompassed our lives, and this poetic and beautiful song came across my playlist. You hear a song during this time, The Last Man on Earth, and it makes you think.
Yeah.
It gave me chills.
Could I be?
Yeah. I was amazed by Alice's voice and the instrumentation, and it's just haunting all the way through. The way the song crescendos twice during it always returns to a place of solitude. It's just kind of has that magical feeling to me. So here I am, happy to bring it up now during this show and share it with people who might not have heard them. Wolf Alice, The Last Man on Earth. You won't be sorry you heard this song.
No, not at all. And it's a good addition here in the 2020s because it kind of encapsulates the apprehensiveness that you had during that pandemic period.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm glad you like this. So yeah, it means a lot to me. I'm done with the 2020s, Matt. It's over to you. What do you got?
Well, surprisingly, I have two songs for the 2020s.
No.
Yeah, this was a shock to me because I expected to try to cram as many songs as possible into the 70s or the 80s.
I've got 3 in the 80s.
I know, and like I said, I'm shocked they're not there for me too. But I gotta recognize rap. I have to, or the rap, as us old heads like to say. This is the twist part of my movie that no one sees coming. It's the M. Night Shyamalan section of the movie. There were times I felt like I failed my kids. That's just a normal parenting thing. But jokes aside,
yeah,
musically, I'm talking. It's been a fun challenge for me to learn about rap, or I'm going to say the rap because I think it's funny. It's been a fun challenge for me to learn about the rap. I'm no Encyclopedia Jones, but I do have playlists with rap on them now. New rap, not old school, new rap. I've also loved the role reversal in letting my kids teach me, because that can be a little bit of an ego bust to people when it's like, oh no, I'm the man. I'm supposed to be the one telling you. I don't want to program my kids. I want them to feed back to me what they know, what they love, and teach me about it. And now I have new songs and artists that I'll check out their new stuff and see if I like it and make up my own mind. Rap is just as responsible for indie music in the early 2000s in getting me out of my comfort zone and exploring new music again. So Max and Owen, thank you. The song though, Don't Touch My Truck by DJ Quarantine. DJ Quarantine. Sorry, I kind of stumbled upon my words there. Who? What? It's a random rap song to most people, which when you're not used to songs or an artist in a genre, you can't pick up the nuances, the differences. It all kind of just sounds the same,
yeah, it does.
right?
Yeah.
to Gemini, most country music sounds the same, right? There's no argument there because we don't dive into that genre. So we can't pick up the nuances. We don't understand or know the artist. Oh, this person went through this shit in their life, and that's why I should appreciate what they're doing now. There's no bullshit here. It's just rap. I really could have thrown in any random rap song, but I heard this song a ton during the COVID experience. It's just fun to rap along with in a very thick Vermont accent. Act up. Don't touch my truck. Skirt, skirt. It's just a fun rap song. Have fun with it, people. It's great.
That's a great memory for you to have. It's a good memory for you to have with your kids. Yeah.
It is because they would play it jokingly. And this is not a serious song to go,
No,
this is the greatest song
this
ever.
this is the soundtrack of our lives. So
Exactly. And this is just a rap song that I chose because I heard it a lot. And oh, well, my kids listen to a lot of rap. So that's kind of my life now. Yeah, I hear a lot of rap, and we're talking about the soundtrack of our lives. And this is the kind of music I hear going on in my life.
So what do you have for the end of the 2020s then?
Oh, yeah.
Because you've got one more.
Yes, you're not wrong. Surprisingly, I have two songs in the 2020s, and it's Black Pumas. The song is Colors. This selection is a tip of the cap to you, Jim, end of the show, the Jam Yearbook.
Thank you.
If not for the Jam Yearbook, I wouldn't have had this huge reconnection with 70s R&B and soul. Black Pumas, they deliver. They're one of a handful of bands we found with a familiar soundscape that sounds like home. My story arc has brought me back full circle to the 70s.
Okay, well, let's take you out of the 70s for a few minutes.
No. I want to stay in the 70s. That's where all the great music is.
Well, I don't know if it's necessarily 70s because I think it was the Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid movie came out in.
Oh, you're moving on to the wild card round,
Yeah,
aren't you,
I
Jim?
am. Because that's where I'm going to go next. This is wild card. And this, I think this came out in like 68 or 69. I didn't look it up. I don't care. But I think it was before we were born, and that's all that mattered. The song is called Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head by BJ Thomas. I love how
that doesn't mean my eyes will soon be turning red. Crying's not for me. Jim, you're supposed to have a sing along with me. Come on, let's go.
So many of my songs, like I said earlier, they're not the best songs of my life. I imagined my life as a Forrest Gump, soundtrack, and the music that would follow me personally. Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head by BJ Thomas make this list because when I was 2 or 3 years old, I had a little wind-up toy radio that played this song. I took it everywhere with me, and I drove my parents nuts. One of those little wind-up toy radios you had when you were a kid.
Yeah.
When I got married, my mother told me that she'd pick the song for the mother of the groom dance. I had no clue. It wasn't until I was out on the dance floor with her. You were there that day, and she chose this song. The sentimental moment definitely choked me up. But if we're going to go all the way back to my first obsession, winding up a toy radio and listening to it, all the sentiment apart, this is the song.
Oh, and you couldn't have chose a better song. Yeah. This is an awesome song. BJ Thomas, Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head. Plenty of great memories listening to the song growing up.
So give us the last song, Matt. It's your choice.
All right. For my wild card, I'm going to go back to the 60s as well with the McCoys and Hang On Sloopy.
Oh, yeah.
I used to play my parents' old records a ton. I'm sure you did the similar thing.
I did.
Having gone through that when my kids were young, it's heartwarming to see them take an interest in what you love and explore and learn. Those first few scratches of a record can make you catch your breath a little bit. And I'm sure that's what my parents experienced when I would when this song's like halfway done. It's like, No, I need to hear that beginning drum beat again. Let's drop it, the needle right there. I know the importance and love of music in my life, and it's something I share with my boys, and that's a very heartwarming thing for me to have in my life.
Oh, I completely respect how do you bring that R&B kind of sound back to the show. And it's a great way to end it because both of us love that sound. Hang On Sloopy by the McCoys, awesome. Good sound. It could be part of both of our lives. I didn't bring a lot of R&B music or maybe any at all, I think, to the show.
Not neither of us really
Not
did,
so
which
much.
was a little
Yeah.
surprising.
But I also think we had a discovery period after we grew up.
Yeah.
And that's why. And we
And some
kind of paint.
Yeah, and sometimes R&B is more about a groove
It is.
than a lyrical intent
Like,
with us.
why don't I have a Beastie Boys song in here? There's other
Or Stevie
bands.
Wonder.
Yeah, exactly. There's stuff that belongs there that we just didn't fit into the parameters of what we set out for the rules of the show.
Yeah.
So,
And if you're wondering why, just listen to old episodes or check out our playlist on Spotify, Jam Yearbook. You'll find plenty of R&B.
oh, you will. People, this is what you get. But the people that know us will probably understand. And that's the best part. So there's probably more we related to, but there's probably more we had admitted to in those times. And there's related to and admitted to. And the people that watched our lives go by will recognize what we admitted to more than what we were quietly relating to in those moments.
Yeah, and if everybody does their own little exercise with this and come up with their own soundtrack, it's not always going to be the number one song of that year or decade or whatever. It's going to be what kind of was following you through your entire life.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So that's it. So we did the soundtrack of our lives right now, but the next show is going to come on October 15th, and it is going to be a wrap up of all the music we found in September. So September 2023, the best of the music found in that month. If you paid attention, you will know we found great stuff to listen to in August. So that's our intention. We're going to find good stuff in September to listen to. And also, we will warn you about the stuff that's not so good because that's what we're here to do. We're going to bring you good new music, old bands that are still putting out good stuff, and old bands are just shouldn't be doing
out shit.
Yeah.
They're putting out shit.
They are.
But we're hoping to bring you bands, new bands or semi-new bands that are putting out at least a good song that'll get you grooving.
Yeah, something you want to get into and listen to. And that's it. We are so done with the soundtrack of our lives. Everybody, thank you for listening to the Jam Yearbook. It has been amazing to have you with us. Matt, you ready to say goodnight?
I am ready to say goodnight, Jim. Not just to you, but to everybody listening to the Jam Yearbook. And we will see you here next time where we talk about September 2023 and everything fantastic and crappy that we have found to listen to.
Peace, love, and podcast.